What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards, old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. On this week's episode of Not Your Average Meta, we not only welcomed a new player to the table, but we also did something we don't normally do, and we broke out some of our higher powered decks. First up this week, we have Ryan representing the Brotherhood of Volo Guide to Monsters players. For those who don't know, Ryan is the third different player to play a Volo deck on the channel. Guess he's a popular commander. This deck is looking to take advantage of Volo's copying ability in order to swarm the board with ETB value. Next up, we have another Volo brother, Eric, but this time he's playing his Pramikon Sky Rampart deck. This is a Jeskai Chaos Stacks deck, where Eric looks to cause as much disruption as possible while he looks for his win conditions. Then we have Fog Raw busting out his mono blue fish baby Tromokratis. This deck looks to control the board while taking extra turns in order to kill his opponents with commander damage. Lastly, we have Justin playing his budget CEDH deck, Anje Falkenrath. This deck looks to use Anje's discard ability in order to draw into a game-winning combo. Now we have our fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, Ryan plays a Forest and passes. Eric draws and plays a Fabled Passage, then cracks it to go get an island. Fog draws and plays a snow-covered island. He then taps one for Mana Vault, then uses the Vault to cast a Grim Monolith, followed by a Jeweled Lotus and passes. Justin draws and plays a tapped Canyon Slough. Ryan draws for turn and plays another Forest before tapping 2 for a Sanctum Weaver. Eric plays another island for turn, then taps 2 for a Talisman of Unity. On Fog's upkeep, he takes 1 damage before drawing for turn. He then plays another snow-covered island and taps out to cast his commander, Tromokratis. Justin draws and plays a mountain before passing. Ryan draws for turn and plays a tapped Castle Vantress. He then taps the Weaver for 1 blue mana and casts Preordain, keeping a card on top and putting one on the bottom before drawing. Eric draws and plays a Deserted Beach before tapping 3 and casting his commander Pramikon, picking for all of us to attack to our left. Fog takes a damage on his upkeep, then draws and plays another snow-covered island. He then casts Personal Tutor, going to find Temporal Mastery and putting it on top of his library. Fog then goes to combat and swings his commander Justin for 8 commander damage and passes. Justin draws for turn and plays an untapped Dragon Skull Summit. He then taps out to cast his commander Anje Falkenrath. He then strings together multiple instances of him tapping Anje to discard a card with Madness, draw a card, and then untap Anje to repeat this process. Ryan draws for turn and plays a Forest. He then taps out and casts his commander Volo, Guide to Monsters, and taps his Weaver for a blue and casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 cards and then putting 2 cards back on top of his library. Eric draws for turn, then taps his Talisman to cast his own Mana Vault. He then plays an Arid Mess for turn, crack it, and go get a Tundra. Fog takes a damage on his upkeep, then draws Temporal Mastery, and casts it for its Miracle cost. Eric then responds with a Narset's Reversal, copying the spell and bouncing it back to Fog's hand. Fog then goes to combat and swings his commander Justin for 8 more commander damage. Justin then takes a hit, and at Fog's instep, discards a card and draws. Justin draws for turn, then discards a card and draws a card. He then plays a Swamp for turn and taps 2 to cycle land and draw a card. Justin then taps 1 and plays a Bag of Holding. Ryan draws for turn and plays an island. He then casts a Prosperous Innkeeper, getting a second copy from Volo. He then mutates an Auspicious Starix onto his Weaver, triggering the first copy's mutate ability, hitting a Spark Double, which he has come into play as a copy of Volo. The second copy then enters and triggers 2 times, revealing a Sad Robot with his first trigger, and then a Fabled Passage with the second. He then cracks a Fabled Passage to find an island before passing. Eric draws and realizes he missed his extra turn before playing a Flagstones of Tarkir. He then taps 4 and casts a Wrath of God to wipe the board. Fog takes a damage and draws for turn. He then plays another snow-covered island and passes. Justin draws for turn and plays a Swamp. He then recasts his commander and uses her ability to discard and draw a couple cards. He then remembers to put his discarded cards under the Bag of Holding. Ryan draws and taps 3 for a Runic Armasaur and another 3, sacrificing a Forest to cast a Harrow to go get 2 more lands untapped. Eric draws and taps out to recast Pramikon, choosing to attack to the right this time. On his upkeep, Fog taps enough to untap his Monolith, but still takes 1 from his Vault. Fog then draws and taps 5 for Gilded Lotus and passes. At the end of his turn, Justin activates Anje to discard and draw, allowing Ryan to draw as well. Justin draws for turn and activates the Bag of Holding to draw and discard a card. He then uses Anje to discard and draw another card, allowing Ryan to draw again, before playing a Swamp for turn. Ryan draws and plays a forest before tapping enough to cast Green Sun Zenith for 7 to go find a Nyx Bloom Ancient, putting it into play. He then casts a Lotus Cobra and passes. Eric draws and plays a Misty Rainforest for turn. He then cracks it, taking a life to go get a Volcanic Island. Eric then taps 7 mana and casts Enduring Ideal and gets a Hive Mind, putting it into play. Falcon taps his Manalith on his upkeep and takes another damage. He then taps enough to recast Tromokratis and passes. On his instep, Justin uses Anje to discard and draw, while Ryan also draws a card. Justin untaps return and casts Jessica's Will, giving everybody else a copy as well. Eric exiles 3 cards he can't play. Justin exiles a Sun-Scorched Desert, a Red Elemental Blast, and a Mountain, while Fog exiles a Snow-Covered Island, Garden of Tazim, and a Reliquary Tower. Justin then casts the Elemental Blast, destroying the Hive Mind. Justin then uses Anje to discard and draw, while Ryan also draws. Justin then casts Dance of the Dead to reanimate World Gorger Dragon, winning the game. As some of you may have realized, World Gorger should have been put under the Bag of Holding instead of the graveyard, while Justin discarded it, which would have made the dragon an illegal target to reanimate, thus stopping him from winning the game. We all realized this as well after the play had already happened, and with him having enough mana to have sacked the Bag of Holding and still pull off the combo, we all agreed to just scoop it up and give him the win. The big winner of this week's game is Justin playing his budget CEDH deck. Even though this win definitely will have an asterisk by it, it's hard to deny how powerful Anje can be even when built on a budget. The MVP of this game goes to Eric's Wrath of God. Even though Anje proved how powerful she can be, what really won Justin the game was Eric wiping the board before I could take Justin out with commander damage. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.